Hello, and welcome back to the Triangle Business Podcast. Once again, I'm your co-host, Joey Nattel, followed by
Scott Moore. Good to see
hey,
everybody.
hey y'all. So I'm wearing red because Valentine's Day is around the corner if you're tuning in, and it's also Friday the 13th as well. So hope you get scaroused this weekend, whatever you get into,
I
whether
don't
it's
know if I've ever told you, but 13 is like a lucky number in my family.
really,
It
no,
was my mom's basketball jersey number,
really,
and my mom is like was 5 feet tall when she played basketball in high school and is
yeah.
probably shorter than that now at 81 years old. But yeah, it's always been like a lucky number in our family. So I don't have any negativity attached to that. But I do notice it on the calendar because when we say Friday the 13th, I mean,
Oh
we've all
yes.
seen the horror movies. So
Oh yes, absolutely. It's very fitting this weekend. So I wore red in honor of that, which is it could be related, but I don't know if it's related to our topic today, which is what people think confidence is versus what it actually is. This is a fun topic.
yeah.
And I will, I'm gonna throw to you, Scott, first, because I've got a lot to say on this. So when you hear that, what comes to mind about it?
Yeah. Like I'm really glad we're talking about this because I think I have a like this kind of organic understanding of it instead of like a real studied version. Um, I guess a couple things come to mind. Like number one, I just had a conversation over the weekend about this, but people frequently do not believe me when I tell them that I was really, really shy as like a teenager in high school, um, really super shy.
Yeah.
And I still definitely loved people, but finding the like courage to speak up was a lot less prevalent for me.
I don't know if you
Um,
ever told me that, actually.
oh yeah.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I don't want to take a lot of time. Maybe someday we'll have like a one where we're just kind of shooting the breeze, and I'll share some of the like. I'll be honest. Like my father doesn't. uh, He didn't do it on purpose. He just said some things to me that I decided to operate with that caused me to start turning the corner on this.
Right.
And I'm very grateful for those things. But in terms of just like what I think confidence is, I think I, because I'm an analyzer, I picture a lot of it as preparedness.
Hmm.
Like I can uh speak about anything.
Hmm.
I mean, not anything, but like I can raise my voice to share a thought, an opinion, whatever,
Hmm.
because I'm like, I think I have something to say about this. And I speak for a living. And so even if I'm kind of figuring it out as I go, I find I'm reasonably articulate. I have a lot of feedback that says I use a lot of words. And I always subscribe to the idea like, um, if I'd had more time, I would have written a shorter letter.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if I'd already had time to think it all the way through, I could have condensed it. But since I'm figuring it out while because I'm a verbal processor, so I'm figuring it out while I'm talking. But I guess what I'm saying is I usually like speak when I feel confident that I have something of value to share.
Hmm.
The other way that confidence shows up for me is in spaces where I feel really safe.
Hmm.
So I'm like, even if I mess this up, even if I say it wrong, or even if what I have to offer doesn't have as much value, I'll be okay. Like nobody's gonna shame me for that. Um, and so
Which took time to level up to have that level of confidence about that
oh,
belief.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But also as I've gotten older,
Yeah.
like I've recognized my privilege more,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
not everybody has the same level of privilege I have, but I'm
Hmm.
like, if I get this wrong, I'll probably be fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the world's not going to end. If I say something that pisses somebody off, I'm not going to get fired because I own this company.
Right.
And, it's like,
Yeah.
they can't really do very much to hurt me. So it's really easy for me to trust. And I think that trusting in both, I mean, this is how I'll land the plane. Trusting in both myself and the environment allows me to feel confident.
That's a good uh thought. And I've never thought about that before. I love that. Um,
But none of that may meet the definition of confidence. I don't know.
yeah.
That's just how I
Yeah.
feel about it.
Um, yeah, like I think an like what I like to share real quick is a distinction for the audience to know the difference between what is the difference between self-esteem, confidence, and self-worth. A lot of
Hmm.
people think these are interchangeable, and some synonyms, yes, but they're not the same thing in a lot of ways. And I don't have a exact definition to share at this moment of confidence off the top of my head, but I'll share this, and I think it might be very helpful. So I'm going to use the analogy of a house. You may have heard me share this before. So with a house, you have a foundation. We'll use like a concrete slab to illustrate this point. The foundation and the cornerstone of your house is your self-worth, what you build your house on. The house itself, roof, the walls, windows, all that stuff, is confidence. And the market value, what it's worth in the market for real
Hmm.
estate, is self-esteem. Now, which of those three tends to fluctuate the most in terms of real estate and housing market?
The market fluctuates.
Correct. So a lot of people, I've had a lot of clients come to me and say, like, I used to have confidence. I don't anymore. Most of the time, that is not true because they had the confidence. And also, which I'll explain more later, it's kind of like a muscle.
Hmm.
The less you use it, it can atrophy, not extremely fast. But because, well, give some context here to explain this point so it lands appropriately. For those of you who don't know, if you work out, let's just use, let's say you can squat something ridiculous like 500 pounds. And then it took you a long time to get there, or however long it took you, it took you. Let's say it took you, I don't know, like 2 years from whatever you were before. Then you just stop working out for a year entirely. You just do nothing. You won't be able to lift that much anymore. However, rather than if you do want to get back to that point, it won't take you 2 years to get back to that. It actually takes you about half. Now, don't quote me on the exact number, but it is significantly less than originally. The same is true for mental skills, mental and emotional skills, such as confidence. It doesn't take as long to get back to it. And going back with my previous example, what most people experience a fluctuation is self-esteem decline rather than confidence. And self-esteem can look like a couple things, getting insulted, things like that. And bigger things. Well, let's use another analogy. Let's say there's an earthquake of the house, cause some potential damage, right?
Right.
And this will make the market value go down potentially. Snap at the neighborhood. The neighborhood is an analogy for like support systems and structures, which is a whole nother
Sure. Sure.
conversation.
Makes sense.
And you can have the most confidence in the world and you have terrible support systems. It, that's a whole different tangent we could get into. But back to the analogy with the earthquake. So the earthquake happens and like a wall falls down, for example. So one, this is a decrease in self-esteem. Now, this is an analogy for like trauma, like big T
Sure.
trauma. And that's a big deal. That will take a blow to your confidence, a divorce, a breakup, a
Yep.
loss of a job, like big things like that will hit that. And it doesn't always have to be as big, but it can be on that level. Now, when the wall fall down, when the confidence decreased, usually what that's a sign of to a certain degree. Now, I'm not saying you get a divorce, it's a sign of this or loss of a job, but it can show that actually what was the reason why you had such a dip in self-esteem and confidence was because there's actually cracks in the foundation of your self-worth. So it's an example of like you then get to go fill those cracks, aka hiring a coach, doing inner work, getting a therapist, like doing shadow work is typically what that is called. When you
Sure.
fill those cracks, you rebuild your foundation so that you can rebuild your confidence so that
Mhm.
it is significantly stronger. And when you reinforce the foundation, aka your self-worth, believing, changing your beliefs of like, I am worthy of this. When Earth Week comes, trauma comes, it will not shake you as much or as deeply, if you will. And so thus you can build a higher scaffolding and grow and all those kind of things. So I love to explain that.
Yeah,
Fine.
that's really interesting, some of those distinctions. And also, what came up for me in some of that was I think it's probably related, in my mind at least, to the distinctions I have about the difference between shame and guilt and humiliation and embarrassment.
Yes.
Because, like, those feel like they kind of fold in together. Like, we talk about confidence and self-esteem, like, we talk about them like they're always, from the ground up, like
Mhm.
they're upsides of something.
Yes.
And I think we think about, like, shame and guilt and humiliation and embarrassment as like the downsides, but they're probably all kind of on a spectrum with each other, or maybe the hits to your confidence start to actually relate to some of those other things. And by the way, just um, if anybody listening has never heard Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability,
Mm.
just stop listening to the podcast right now and go download that from Audible and listen to it, because her distinction between shame and guilt and humiliation and embarrassment is was a huge breakthrough for me. And I think it's very related to this conversation we're having about confidence, and how it
Yes.
is, how different things that we
Yes.
conflate as all being confidence are actually distinct things.
Mhm. And for those who don't know, to back up her credibility, she is a shame researcher and
Yeah,
she's been doing it
yeah,
for almost 30 years. So she knows her
yeah,
stuff. For
yeah.
sure. Very wonderful. Love her work as well. But yeah, so like these are distinctions about like, okay, this is what this is, and this might be what you experience. Now, a lot of clients I've had, which is too often people say to me, like, well, Joey, I don't want to be too confident because then I'll be arrogant or full of
Right.
myself. It's actually impossible to do that. And let me explain. I'd like to use this analogy like, is it possible to eat too healthy today? As
Right.
far as I know, I don't believe that's possible. And I would love to be proven wrong on that if it is. But as far as I know, I don't think it is. The same is true with confidence in a lot of ways. Because what a lot of people think is like, oh, I'm going to get so confident that I'm going to start looking down at people, be arrogant. But that's actually the opposite because arrogance, foolhardiness, and like that kind of stuff, ego is actually a lack of confidence. It's
Right.
actually the opposite. Now, it goes toward the direction of narcissism, but that's another conversation entirely that we're not going to dig into because that's way out of scope for this, but is still in the same direction. So, a person who is arrogant or full of themselves, typically what happens, not always, but typically is that usually you see this with either physical activity or achievements or intellectual. I'm thinking of the stereotypical IT guy who's a genius, but he just talks in like jargon because he really wants to sound smart and he
Yeah.
won't break it down because he feels like he needs to be superior. Or another example of this could be someone, it could be in politics, but outside politics, especially too, where somebody like wants to debate and they want to win because they want to prove people wrong, put themselves right. So it's essentially an endless pit of I need to prove myself to myself because I'm not content with who I am and where I am. And I need that external validation constantly, which is
Mhm.
not true confidence. It's the opposite. And they will endlessly chase that. It's kind of like almost it's a form of addiction, actually. And and it can ruin your life if you're unaware of it, right?
Yeah.
And so what a truly confident person does is they're not always the loudest in the room. They could be if they're on stage, speaking, that's different. But they don't have to always, I was going to say be right, but they don't always have to chime in per se. They don't have to. They don't need to because they know that they are. Not that they're better than others, but just like, I'm cool with this. Like, I don't need to go out and win that argument. I could walk away if I need to because it's not worth my time and energy and feeling settled within yourself in a lot of ways. And so some people may say to me, like, well, how do you know? How do you know if somebody's truly confident versus arrogant? Was a good question. And in the beginning, you may not, unfortunately, because what can also happen is that when you meet a truly confident individual or an arrogant person, you don't know yet. Time will tell is the short answer. Time will tell because you will know why do they always like try to go out of the way to win arguments? Like, wow, that feels kind of ego driven. But beside that, like, how do you know if it's truly confident versus not? A common occurrence that can happen is that when people encounter that level or a level of confidence or arrogance, they may start to think about themselves. Like, wow, Tom is really confident. I'm really not. Wow, it really reminds me of where I'm not at. This is also true in other phenomenons. We see this happening a lot in teenagers, especially who compare themselves to like Instagram influencers,
Yeah.
whether it's beauty or success and achievement. Like, wow, I'm just not that level. And it really just takes a toll because that's comparison syndrome, which is a thief of joy, as we know. But this is also true kind of in person because you feel it and it makes you not feel good. This is also kind of phenomenon when people hire a coach or start working on themselves, whether it's physically, whether they're food or they work on a therapist and they start to get a higher level of like just moving healthy through the world. You know who hates that is everyone around you.
Right. It's the old crab
Why?
bucket.
Right. And so why is that? Because most people don't like change.
Yeah.
Most people don't. Now, some people are like, oh, I love change. I'm like, well, you love the result. You don't really like the process. And there's a small percentage who do.
I want the thing,
Right.
if I could just skip ahead by
Right.
waving my magic wand. Yeah.
Right. And so what happens is this ripple effect is like, family or friends, they start to feel uncomfortable because you're starting to level up. And sometimes when you start to level up, you may gain more confidence or skill. It'll remind them of where they're not.
Hmm.
And that doesn't make people feel good because it's a kind of a mirror, if you will, of like where I'm not. So what can happen is people will say like, oh, that guy's just arrogant or she's just full of herself. That's one way to kind of combat their uncomfortable feelings.
Mhm.
But it also might be true. And again, time will tell if it is or isn't kind of thing. And so then, well, how do you get over that? Well, if it's a truly confident person, you stay in their sphere if they want you to, and you will begin to start leveling up your mindset, physicality, and all those kind of things too. So that's a rant. I'll go on about
So
that.
something comes up for me in all this, and part of, if anybody listening doesn't know this already, part of one of the hobbies that Joey and I share are we like to play games, right?
Yes.
Board games and role playing games and things like that. And a
Yep.
lot of the games I play are collaborative. And um, when we're having this conversation about like the difference maybe between confidence and arrogance, um, I related a lot to games, like because it's like a safe space.
Yep.
And so if I'm around a gaming table, let's take the example of a competitive game.
Hmm.
I can play a competitive game and lose and have fun and learn something and like all the people at the table better.
Yes.
I think, I don't get a chance to play games with every single person I know, but if I come away from a game feeling like they beat me and they lorded it over me, ha ha, I got you.
Yeah.
Like I start to think arrogant, like insecure, like, okay, sure, maybe you're quite good at this. Or
Mm.
maybe you got lucky this time around. And for you, it's really important to put other people down and right. And I mean, the number of times this has happened to me, like I'm sure there's a few, but like I can't remember the last time because I mostly just play games with people I feel really comfortable around, I like, and they're not like this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But that would stand out to me as like that's arrogant. It's somebody who's like says, yeah, like this game, the reason I won was because I did this strategy or I tried something that seemed risky and it paid off. And they're sharing, like, this is how I got here. And if that helps you the next time you play this game, that would, that'd be great. That's a win-win.
Yes. Yeah.
And, it's not what we call a zero sum game, which is like, you know, I can't win if you don't lose.
Right.
But there's lots of games that are like that, right? Like if we play chess, we'll have to talk to Tim Cable sometime because Tim is one of my favorite people and he's also like a huge chess nut.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't win a game of chess if you don't lose the game of chess. But there's a really collaborative ways for us to engage with that where like I'm learning from you and you're learning from me and we're both viewing this as time well spent together and
Right.
it's not like haha I gotcha.
Yes.
So when you were talking about that, like that difference between like real confidence and arrogance, it's like
Hmm.
that need to for them to lose so you can feel good about yourself, that feels like it comes from the arrogance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there was probably other things that are too, like rubbing your face in it.
Yeah.
Like that I would even not even just call arrogant. I would just say like that's just a really bad quality. Like you're just a crappy person
Yeah, I
to a
mean,
certain
like
degree. Like if you mean
if
it.
you're texting me later and like, man, I beat you so bad tonight that you must feel terrible. You're just a dick.
Yeah, you're just like, man, you really need that win, don't you? Kind of thing. One thing I also wanted to mention here, which is an interesting distinction, is like one of the reasons why I started learning more about confidence is I didn't have it at all. I had really, really, really low self-esteem
Hmm.
when I was younger, especially. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get more confidence was I wanted to learn how to talk to girls. Typically, I'm just,
That's a good a
curious.
reason
Like,
as any.
yeah, and I wanted to get my confidence, learn how to talk to girls, and that was kind of my at least in the early college years, early 20s, that was my biggest reason.
Hmm.
And also just make more friends too, like that piece, but mostly girls. And at that time, I used to think like the a truly confident person, it's not always men, could like go to a bar, see a pretty girl, and be like, and just walk across the bar and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And just like instantly start like flirting with her and it go well, specifically go well. What I've learned now is that isn't true confidence. That is not epitome of confidence. First of all, does she even want that? Is this an appropriate environment? Like they have bars at grocery stores. Are people trying to engage in that kind of thing? I mean, not always when you're shopping. You know what I mean? Time and place kind of thing. And that was what really helped me understand. Like, it's not like, oh, I can just go talk to any cute girl I want and they'll just love me because I'm this gorgeous Fabio character and they'll love me. Like, that's what I thought confidence was. It has nothing to do with that. Because what's actually going to happen is that when you are aligned with who you are truly confident, you will become more attractive
Yeah.
in general, perceived as such. And that doesn't mean like being somebody you're not, being like the movie stars like James Bond, or I don't even know if that's a good example, just like the suave character. Like that, what that is specifically speaking about is called charisma,
Hmm.
which shows up very differently. And charisma is, for those of you who don't know, is a combination of competence and warmth
Hmm.
combined together. And so this I'm using terminologies that come from Vanessa Ben Edwards' book, which I teach on itself, um, cues. And so warmness is, I'll show you an example. Like someone who's too warm, because you can be on a spectrum. Someone who's too warm is like, oh my God, it's hi, it's so good to see you. Oh my God, do you need anything? Oh my God, it's so happy to see you. Like, get away from me. Like, stop, 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 stop. Right? That's a little too much. And we know people like this. And when we meet these people, if we don't know them, what do we immediately think? What do you think when you meet someone like this?
I
Whether
mean,
it's,
so I sometimes think like try hard,
yeah,
right? Like they're,
yeah,
boy, they're really wanting this to be good.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
trying very hard.
Needy comes up to
Yeah,
mind, but like,
sure.
even if we tone it down, like someone who's really, really friendly, but
Mm.
not in a needy way. What do you think of that person?
I mean,
Like,
I
oh,
guess,
Scott, it's so good to see you. Like, it's been so long. Like,
right?
man,
Yeah, I mean
love
that they
talking to
care,
you.
right? Like
They
that
do
that
care.
and that it invites me to share with them and to want to know how they're doing and what's been
Yeah.
going on for
Yeah,
them. And
you
yeah,
trust them,
it
but
is. Yeah.
what can also be the detriment of that? What comes to mind? I'll give it away after you
Yeah, I
guess.
mean, I guess sometimes,
Somebody's really warm, really
I guess that
friendly.
it
You trust
they're
them.
if they're coming on strongly, like I maybe am not in the mood to talk about it, or like I'm not quite where they are.
Well, yeah, and what I was really trying to get here without my poor example of this is essentially like when somebody is very warm and friendly, you trust them, but you may not take them seriously.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure.
That's the direction I was trying to go with that.
Okay.
And so vice versa, like stereotypically studies show up, this typically shows up more in women than men, especially in the workplace kind of thing. I'm an counter example of that. I tend to be more on the warm side typically. Vice versa, if you're on the competent side, you're very competent. It can look like more like, hello, Scott.
Yeah.
It's good to see you
A
today,
little cold.
Mr. Anderson. Something like,
Yeah.
very stoic, an example. So what do you, when you meet those people, like, what do you think about them?
You mean people that are leaning more on the competent
Yeah,
side?
like, how do you feel? Like, what are some thoughts that come to mind?
I mean, I feel like I probably, I'm trying to go meet them where they are. Like, if I need to tap into your competence, maybe I have to overcome my resistance, wishing you were more warm,
Right.
wishing, or maybe I'm feeling like I have to prove myself somehow to make you want to warm up to me.
Yes. And another way to put that is I know you're the boss. I know you're in charge, but I might be afraid of you or I don't trust you. I will not be
Yeah,
transparent with you.
right.
And so some bosses run into this. You need to know I'm the boss, rule the iron fist. And what
Right.
happens? You don't know what's going on in your organization whatsoever, kind of thing. So marrying the two is a skill that anybody can learn. And so when I was using the example of like the suave kind of person, that's charisma, if you will. And learning to do this, it is a skill. So it's learning a couple things like how to balance the things, like learning how to move from more competent if you're maybe in a more corporate setting versus a social setting, you tend to be more warm. Because what the problem is if you're stuck in one all the time,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not going to serve you. Like 50% of the time it's going to be amazing, other 50% it's not going to be great, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So that's something, a distinction to keep in mind about that. Um, so yeah, those are just kind of things. We're going to wrap up here. And I'll give some tips here in a minute on how to increase that. But like, what's some thoughts that come to mind? Maybe a tips that come to mind for you about how to increase confidence, whether it's competence or any closing thoughts that just come to mind you want to share.
I, I was in a leadership training this weekend, and we
Yes.
had a feedback process.
Yes.
And let me, for anybody that knows me well that's listening to this was an acknowledgement process, right? It
Mhm.
was not a here are some things about you that are maybe not so great. This was like
Right.
a here are some things about you that I experienced as really good. Um, and I got this. Somebody said to me, "You seem really solid. Like you seem reliable, and like you just are going to show up."
Mhm.
And I think if I'm going to be succinct about this, that's one of the qualities that I feel has been like a positive feedback loop. Like the more I show up in like a consistently, but also vulnerably, the more I'm just like trying to be my authentic self. The like I feel confident because I'm not trying to pretend I'm being something I'm not.
Yes.
And I feel really secure in just being who I am.
Yeah.
And then that seems to make people feel um, comfort and reliability around me. And so since I experience them as being comfortable and liking my reliability, I want to come back to that same kind of environment again,
Yeah.
which makes me feel even more comfortable and more reliable. And so it's just been one of those things that's it's steadily built. So
Yeah.
that's what comes up for me
Well
as like a
said.
mechanism.
Well said. And I'll expand on that one too. A tip that I'll share. So a lot of people ask me like, well, how do I become more confident? And I could say a couple things. Like the short answer is like do things that are difficult. Like that's the short. People want a one word response to that. But I think what's actually more helpful and more relevant is confidence isn't always about, let me put it this way. We hope that confidence is like a skill that you just like increase.
Mm,
You get a baseline. Now, self-worth doesn't, when you increase that, that typically does not fluctuate unless you
mhm.
find more cracks. Confidence can go like this, and self-esteem goes like this the
Right.
most, hence the analogy said earlier. So, one thing that's actually more relevant and a more way to view this is that there's this thing called situational confidence, which is what we all experience. For example, then you think of places that you feel most confident. It could be a nightclub, the boardroom, a tea shop, the bar, a loud bar, just a quiet, kind of casual cocktail bar kind
Mm,
of thing, in the park. Think of places where you feel most at ease.
mm,
And who do you feel most at ease with, typically? I can tell you from experience, like I have the I have the ability to go out to a bar by myself. I was in my 20s. I try to talk to girls that way. And I would consider myself who worked on my confidence. And that was very difficult for me.
yeah.
And it still is. And I would have a successful night by, flirting with a girl and just having a really good conversation. To me, that's a win. But sometimes I'd be like, wow, I'm really in my head kind of thing. And this is also true in networking too. Let's, relate this to business. I think it's just fun using since Valentine's Day dating. It's staying on theme here. But what you will find more so, I mean, that's what the concept of a wing woman or wingman, like a friend to go with, which
Sure.
networking is, because you are going to feel more confident knowing you have like an anchor at a social setting, especially if you're introverted. I'm extremely extroverted, and this can be challenging for me. So this is an extroverted versus extroverted kind of thing. So having situations where you show up to events where you're with people you already like, who it's easier to be yourself. You're going to authentically and naturally just be confident, which will actually help you start conversations and handle difficult ones if they come up.
Mhm.
Because if you're by yourself in a difficult conversation, like somebody gives you a weird look, it's going to hit you a little harder, or you're going to notice it more because you kind of don't really have like a anchor point in a lot of ways. So the biggest thing I would say in the short term is like setting yourself up to win. Like if you find loud concerts is like a 10 out of 10, the most difficult, 10 being the most difficult versus one being the easiest. Like don't, using a video game analogy, don't go in nightmare mode. You don't need to do that in order to level up your confidence. I'd rather you do a lot of easy reps and then work up to normal mode or never and just go to easy places that are a little bit outside your comfort zone, 1% versus like 50%. So that's my closing thoughts.
Yeah.
So anyway, any other thoughts
I
before
love it.
we close it
No,
off?
this has been a really interesting and useful conversation. I feel like you're coming to this with a lot of understanding and I'm coming to it with like my own experiences, but not really trying to make it into like a structural concept that makes it more actionable. So I love that that this was our conversation today. It
I love
was
it too.
a
And
blast.
if you loved our conversation, tune in to more episodes by giving us a follow or subscribe or give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And we're looking for guests too. So if you're a small business, local or abroad, give us a message. And we'd love to talk. Maybe we'll have you on the show. Support your business any way, shape, or form we can. Tune in next time, y'all.
Tune in next time, y'all. I love the that's the y'all makes it a real North Carolina kind of close, right?
That's true. Bye bye,
All
y'all.
right. Take care.